things. So
Yeah,
we're on,
so
on
we're good
board
to
here.
yeah,
Here we are again.
we are.
It's the newsstreamingnetwork.com, WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network Radio and TV podcasts, the #1 internet singles talk network. And this is Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry. Hi, Barry.
Hi, Christine.
So this week we're going to talk about, do women want men to save them? This kind of goes back to the damsel in distress conversation we had a couple of weeks ago, huh?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, definitely. It also has relevance now because there's the meme's been going around. Not the meme, sorry, the hashtag. It's been going on for a few months now. I think it is about the trad wife label that went around for a while.
The what?
Because that there's a hashtag called trad wife, like traditional wife. It's been going on like TikTok and Instagram, I heard, and another conversation I've had with another podcast. We talked about this, and the thing is that label, in some ways, leans into the thing about women still wanting to save them, because some of the trad wife energy is about having a man do all the work, sort of thing, to be the hero. So they put the feet up. Now, of course, I may be misinterpreting that, and some people may say, no, trad wife means this and this. It's like, well, just from my perspective, it feels like a throwback. And just one more piece to put in the conversation right before we get into this is I saw somebody post a couple of days ago on Facebook that this is the 50th anniversary. I'm not sure it's true or not. 50th anniversary when women finally got their own bank accounts and credit cards and freedom to do their own thing. I know it's somewhere in the early 70s, so it could be right. But even so, that wasn't that long ago. And the idea about the fact that women haven't had their own independence financially for more than 50 years is pretty distressing, to be honest. So this topic has relevance in different angles too. So shall we get into it?
I think so. And it's interesting because where have I been that I hadn't heard about the trad wife hashtag? And when you said it, you know, I always come up with my definition from my female point of view. And I so enjoyed hearing your male point of view, because from mine, I thought it meant traditional in that in my world, it didn't feel like being saved. It felt like we have more defined roles, and we were generally, because we had limited experience, generally okay with the roles. If everybody was generally nice to each other, that the woman stayed home and cooked and cleaned and raised kids, and the guy went out and was the breadwinner and brought it home, and she met him at the door with a drink. My mom, until she learned different, was not unhappy with that. And a lot of her friends were not really unhappy with it. I mean, there certainly were things that they went about. And what happens is when you now have more options and you see more options, you know, if you only have one page on the menu, you don't even know there's so many things to choose from. But if you now have a bunch of pages in the menu, like, I didn't even know I could have it this way or something completely different. So it can have a lot of very negative connotations, I think, and certainly in hindsight, with all the freedoms that women can have, we really can.
Yes.
And it's not even in spite of men. What's interesting is there really are a lot of because of men. Good men have really helped women boost themselves up. Not even guys can boost us up, but I can't tell you all the opportunities I was given at work. So many that I wouldn't have even thought of or considered. And they kept saying, oh yeah, go do that. Oh, I can support you for that. And I certainly had some crappy bosses, both male and female. Generally in my business life, I had such amazing experiences with men. And then I learned, you know, gosh, they're not all like that. And I really was fortunate to have that too. It gave me an opportunity to go, yeah, I guess I could go start my own company, which was kind of terrifying, but they all kept believing in me. So I love hearing that from the man's point of view, that the traditional could have a really negative slant, for sure. And so that's what's interesting when people just flash something out on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook. That's the thing. We all have such different experiences and dictionaries inside of us. We could go in such different directions. And why would they think anything different? Why would somebody think different than either one of us? Because we have different, that is just our world, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. There's so much. I mean, definitely, as Roy said, and I've always said, there's so much to unpack because this means so many different things to different people. And, you know, I grew up somewhere similar to you with parents that were in that culture, that arrangement, so to speak. And, you know, my mom was definitely the stay-at-home mom, took care of the kids, the cleaning, cooking, all that sort of stuff, until basically the kids were growing up, and then she went out to work when the kids weren't around anymore. Like, we were out doing our own thing. And so there's, I guess that there may be some yearning for some women, some in a very small proportion maybe, who, that's where the trad wife label comes from. They want to go back to a place where they basically don't have to effort so much. Because I know for some women, it's a lot of work to basically, especially in the business world, as I said before in other talks, about how the business world was basically created by men for men that women had to conform to fit into. And so women have had to contort themselves out of their natural womanly feminine way to succeed in the business world. So for some women, that's very distressing and challenging. I understand that totally, which is why I have why I love supporting women basically owning their femininity in the business world, because it needs to change anyway. That's a whole other conversation for another time. However, on the same note, for women, there's a level of efforting sometimes that's more than men have, because we're more naturally wired that way to function. So even though for men it's stressful to work and everything else, it feels like for women in that same arena, it's almost doubly stressful, because they've got to put on the different hat to fit into that environment. And so I understand the feeling in there, where for some women, the idea of giving that all up just to be a stay-at-home wife, traditional values, and let the man do all the work feels like a relief. But I also looked at it in some ways that for me, maybe it's where I grew up and also the culture I came up with too, where women who were the housewives were looked down upon. So their status in the world wasn't necessarily as honorable, because they were doing, in quotes, housework sort of thing. And this is, of course, not in the societal levels where households had maids and nannies and all the other stuff that took care of everything. So the wife should basically just drink cocktails all day. We're not talking about that, because that's a whole other conversation. So the understanding that for women, there's been such a evolution of choices where we are now and where we were, and what's true for some women. So the titles about what, do women still want men to save them? We did speak up, this is going more a few weeks ago, I think we talked about the whole bendel in distress, knight in shining armor type syndrome, which I talked about in my own experience with my car and everything else I went through that journey. The saving part, there is, I think, in most women, that young girl who loves the fairy tale of the man in shining armor looking so debonair and chivalrous and charming, saving her, so to speak, but not necessarily saving her like from everything, just being that role, that gallant energy. And so there's that energy I think that women would love to have in their men, but not necessarily to save them, maybe just to honor them. And that's the key word I think I want to play with, is honor.
Yeah. Well, this is usually yours. I say a bunch of stuff and you go, there's so many things to say. Because what I learned too, when women and men have all these choices, I have women friends who thrive at work. They love going to work. They love the challenge. They love the focus. They like the having a task and being on it and leading a team. It just floats their boat.
Yeah.
And they have the challenge sometimes coming home, and how do they balance that energy? Because with a man who has a high masculine energy, because I know there's women that have a lot of masculine energy that can often be with men that don't have as much, and it can work. I do not have friends like that. They have married very alpha men. And so that's been really interesting to watch that dance, because when they come home, it's not as if the guy says you need, to put on an apron and cook. It's that he's looking for some softness. He's been in the work world, and she's been in the work world, and it's not that, and she really does want the softness, then she can't get it from him. And so I've had these conversations with them, because that's not where you're going to get it. You need to figure out how to flip the switch and be soft, and then he will rise up to be the masculine nurturing part to that soft. He will be drawn into it, but you can't have both of these alpha people coming together. And then then the other hard thing was happen when women started going out to work instead of staying home doing. My mother said staying at home with 3 kids was way harder than going to work later.
Oh, absolutely.
The hardest she's ever worked in her life. To how much dishonor happened to the women who went, I like staying home. I like keeping a night house. I like thinking about what's for dinner. I like being there with my kids all day. I don't want somebody else raising them. That really worked for them. And then how the little people would look down on their noses about them. And that was really hard on them. And then I've met a few guys that ended up being, they were the preferred person to stay home and be stay-at-home dads. And they got some grief, but the women got grief for not staying home. So I know this isn't exactly, I kept thinking this is so not exactly the save title, but I think this all can combine, because I think, yeah, I mean, does somebody want to have somebody ride in and sweep them up in their arms and take them away and, you know, buy them a big castle and you never have to worry about money anymore and you have an unlimited Nordstrom card? I know they're out there. I know they're out there. I've known of them, like a couple degrees separation. They aren't the happiest. I really want to see, I want to believe they're happy. And they don't seem to be, because what I've learned about me personally and human beings in general is we like having a purpose. So those women that stayed home had a lot of purposes. I mean, they were the women behind the successful man. They entertained all of their friends. They raised great kids. They took pride in the food in the house. So they felt like they had a purpose. I think the women that don't feel like they have a purpose are the ones who feel like they want to get saved. What do you think about that thing? I came around completely around the block to get there. But I think that might raise that desire when you already don't have a purposeful life.
Right.
With or without it.
Yeah, I mean, but in the masculine feminine work I've been studying, they talk about how purpose is a masculine thing, but I agree with you that it's not just that. That in fact, women, the feminine does need a calling or a desire, but the thing is for the feminine, because it's not the only thing they thrive on, because men, we have to have a purpose to sort of survive. Women don't need to be that single focused. So the women has that gift about being able to function at so many levels. That's the whole thing about the masculine feminine. Again, previous talks about, we talked about this, so go find those if you want to listen to those. The thing that I feel is happening more and more is women are stepping out into the world to find something that lights their soul on fire, so to speak, that lifts them up, that keeps them, I won't say motivated, but inspired is probably a better word, that keeps them fueled to go forward and do things in the world that are outside of the family dynamic and the family structure, that is something you do in the world to leave a legacy or to create an impact or to express their creativity, their artistry, whatever that is. And so it feels like that part of this is men have a role to shift into if they're in a relationship with women like that, is how do they realize they don't have to be or don't need to be isolated in their own, like, I'm doing the job and you do what you were doing and no collaboration. It's like the thing for me that I think men have to grow into, and I'm part of this movement in a sense, is being of service to my partner, of being a cheerleader for my partner, of being an enabler in a sense. Like, how can I support her in having what she wants and being who she wants to be in the world, where I get benefit because she's so happy because of what I'm doing, but she gets benefit because I'm making sure she has everything she needs or the support she needs or the space she needs or whatever it is to do what she wants to do in the world. And that's part of the work we men are more need to do. So it's not about saving, but serving. What's interesting, from saving to serving. Oh, I like that.
I like that too. I'm sure you're going to come up with something about that. Yeah, I think collaboration, partnership, so that each person gets to find what is the thing. So it was interesting when you talked about the purpose, because yes, I find that when I talk to men about a purpose, it's very single focused. Yeah. When I talk to women about a purpose, it feels broader to them, like their purpose of a happy family, of a comfortable home. It takes a lot of things to do those. It's not, we're doing this project A, B, C, D. There's 20 things that are going to go into making this purpose. So our diffuse awareness and our single focus certainly comes into play, even though we're talking about that you feel like you have a purpose, that you have a reason to get up every day, that you're leaving a legacy from both points of view, the single and the diffuse, that you are feeling like you're making a difference in your community, your family, yourself, the world, in these very different ways with the same goal.
Yeah.
And I think what happens when women feel like they need to be saved is they don't feel capable of that. because that's when we talk about, when men generally, especially not men that are not codependent, don't want a woman that's needy. They want a woman that pays her bills and, knows how to put gas in her car and, isn't falling apart all the time. And that they do, as you said, which, oh my God, my late husband could not, didn't matter what I came up with. He was my cheerleader. Okay, well, go do that. Okay, how can I support you? Who can I tell about this? He was the best. I'd never met anybody quite like that before. And so I would never have used the word save. I certainly would have said he came to my aid. He came to my side. He came to, if you tell me what you need, and maybe I could make some other suggestions. Have you thought of this? And would you be interested in that? Where it felt like I was better because of that. And I never felt one down ever. So that's the thing that I so miss about the partnership part, was how you keep making each other better and not to go save somebody. I heard about somebody recently that died because they got a cramp when they were very good swimmer, and someone went out to save them, and they kept pulling the other person down, and the other person had to let them go because they both would have drowned. And that's that kind of saving, where if somebody is really going down, you mean like, let me see if, not drowning, but let me see if I can get you help. But I can't sacrifice myself. And I think that that's what happens when the woman says, come save me. That how can the man, maybe that makes him feel needed. Tell me that from a guy's point of view. Does it make you feel like more of a man? What's the benefit to that for a man?
The way I would phrase it, speaking back to, I talked about the knight in shining armor experience I had years ago. Being the white label that I got given, there was something noble, something validating about being in that role, where I could, because it was in my skill set, like it was within my wheelhouse to be able to do these things, to be able to serve and to save this girl, this woman. But after a few times, it started to become wearing. It shifted from being easy and joyful to being wearing and tiring, because it wasn't something that is workable, frankly. I don't think there are very few men who can live that way, where they're always giving and always, taking care of all these different women. Even just thinking about a woman repeatedly who unable to do things. They were saying about, men want men who are enabled, who can do their own thing, take care of themselves. That's absolutely great. I agreed. And I need to make a little side detour for a second, because it came up with my thoughts about, if your partner is disabled physically. I know a couple of couples where, I'm thinking both cases. One case, the woman's disabled. Actually, no, both cases, the woman's disabled. But the thing is, their relationship, I believe both relationships started before the woman was disabled. So a transition into that space. So for the man to save, in a sense, having to do a lot of the physical stuff that she can't do, was part of the package, part of the inclusion, and that has to happen. So that's a different piece than what we're talking about. But just so put that to one side, it'd be just about regular human beings without any physical challenges or disablement or disabilities. That the saving energetic for a lot of times is, and I was aware of this too, is that some women who I quote saved were being lazy versus they needed help. And that's a whole other piece of the pie, is where there's a challenge, because some women, and men do this too, tend to get lazy and don't want to make the effort to stand on their own 2 feet. And so, as I said before, my own experience and preference, I'm looking for a partner to stand side by side with me, rather than everyone's got to keep picking up and saving all the time. So this conversation about having a woman who doesn't need saving is a preference.
So somebody that if they need to learn something, you teach them to fish rather than keep handing them fishes.
Yeah, simply put.
Handing them fish, I guess. Fish is still plural. Yeah, it's an interesting dance, because every once in a while somebody really does. Something terrible happened. So many people came to help me. I didn't feel like they were saving me, but they certainly came to help me when my husband died suddenly, and they kept buoying me up and bringing me food and telling me to eat and feeding the cats and cleaning the cat box and all the things that were just felt I wasn't even thinking about, and they just felt too hard. And then yet I moved forward. I moved through it. They didn't have to hang around I did tell them 2 weeks. I needed 2 weeks, somebody there every night for 2 weeks. And then I was okay. So I think that's the thing. If somebody says, boy, I really need this right now. And you say, okay, this is limited time, right?
Right.
So I think really what people think about the definition of our talk today is a lot more kind of a forever thing, huh? Ongoing.
And we will definitely dive into that more after the break, because we've got to take a break right now. But yes, there's a lot more to discuss about this, and we will talk about it shortly when we get back from a commercial break. So stay tuned.
Okay. Hi, we're back to Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry. And today we're talking about, do women still want men to save them? Such a big subject. And I also think it would be important for us to talk about, do men still want to save women? I mean, is that still part of in your DNA? Because protecting and providing are very important to you, and strong desires, and have been in your DNA forever and ever and ever. And how do you fight not coming to the rescue to everybody? And how did you make that switch, Mr. Selby, that you talked about so often?
Partly because I realized what I was looking for wasn't that. That was part of the clarity of that. At the same time, I know, and we again took this before too, from the simple act of opening a door for a woman when you're walking into a store or to a building, and how women respond to that is just very entertaining, the spectrum of response they get. But the thing is, for me, it's like, and as I said then, as I say again now, it's like, I don't do it because she's helpless. I do it because I respect her. And so the saving or providing, even just providing access, or being the strong pair of arms to help or to hold or to give or to serve, whatever it is, that isn't necessarily a requirement for the relationship, because it could be with friends too. So it's just something that we get to do because we are, most men, have that within our wiring, that we are definitely here to be that noble, gallant gentleman type thing. It's good of the way that we're wired, certainly the way I was wired. And the thing is that I found that to be being a gentleman who has around a lady who is self-assured and takes care of herself and loves the extra bonus of a man that can help her on other things, that for me is the joy. When it's a woman who basically, can't do anything without my help, that's not fun.
Yeah, it's such a dance. It really is a dance. And so for women, if you think that you are waiting for anybody, a man to save you, figuring out, well, what is that? And what is it maybe you need to learn to do yourself? That would be really helpful. Or that you could do with somebody, because with somebody doesn't mean they're coming and doing it all, because that's really what saving means, that they're doing all the work, all the effort, all the thought, all the preparation, all the follow-up. And so if you're not an active participant, that's kind of a saving thing for sure.
Oh, yeah.
So what part of it, before you ask, could you do? What part of it could you? Because, there's people that get in hard circumstances. And what I've learned, because I've been a couple degrees from that, is when you have a conversation with them about, we'll get really clear. What's one thing we could do for you? What's one thing we could help you with? And then what could you do about that? How could you add to that? And how could we now do this together? And not everybody's an active participant in that. I was very excited about the people that were. I liked the idea that people went, I want to learn. I have a number of friends who teach English as a second language. And oh my God, they are the most enthusiastic students. They really, really want to learn. And they don't feel like anybody needs to save them. They want to learn. and they have no idea how to do it. So they needed somebody to say, okay, here's where the class is. And I don't, but they spoke their language to help them get to this place. And then you have to figure out how to show up. You know, do you need me to help you figure out a bus or a ride, or you can carpool, and then you have to get there and you have to do the thing. And then you have to practice in between. And I think those are the most enthusiastic people I have met in a really long time. They were so excited. So that's when you move from, they really didn't want you to save them, but some people wanted to go save them. They wanted to just go speak their language and take them places and do the thing. And they were like, no, that's really not what I want. I want to assimilate. So It was helpful to have the people say, don't save me, because there was people wanting to save them. Isn't that kind of an interesting backwards thing?
Yeah, well, it's almost like a difference between a sense of like, do it for me or help me do it with me.
Yeah.
That sort of shift. And that's the thing, again, relationships too, is there can be this assumption. I know I have a friend like this who basically, it's a doing for versus helping with. And in some cases, of course, it's going to be, if the person's physically incapable of doing something, then it's to do it for them is one thing. And of course, there was both ways in regards to gender. But the sense that women want to save them is like, do women want a man to save them or a man to help them? Which are two different things. And that's the qualification. So for me, definitely being around women, I don't mind doing it for them if it's a one-time thing, like just helping out with this sort of thing or that sort of thing. But if it's constantly doing things for them versus, I need some help with this, like I'll grab this and you grab this end of that table or whatever, moving it sort of thing, then that makes more sense. And that for me is workable and appreciated.
Or you come change my tire and I'll make you dinner. Because I don't know how to change. I do actually, but if I didn't know how to change a tire, but I know how to make dinner. I mean, it's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's really helpful if somebody is being helpless, which is generally why they need to be saved, to say, what is the limited thing? What could I do a little bit of? And what are you going to do? Because what I've learned, certainly as a coach, I'm sure you do this too, is we cannot work any harder on somebody else's life than they're willing to work.
Absolutely.
I had to learn that in my first couple of years. I didn't understand that. I finally got it. So to do that with this, that somebody who looks like they need saving, what are they willing to do to work on it? And so then if a man thinks that he wants to run in and save, how do you say, no, thank you? I'm really capable. Because it can be both ways. For sure.
That is one of the challenges. We talk too about how we don't read situations as well as women do. Like where intuition is not as well defined as women are, generally speaking. So we may paint the picture with some assumption without having the clarity, which you can provide for us if you just tell us. So yes, if there's a burning house and we're actually save everybody in the house, it's there's nothing to say there, just do it sort of thing. But if it's something more, it's something less life at risk type stuff. So it's just something you want to do. Having that space, and I think to go back to what you said as well, I want to touch into that sense where a woman might feel helpless because what she wants done she can't do, but the man can do. There's something else she can do for him. If maybe it can be make dinner, and maybe it can be connected into him to something he wants. Maybe she can do something for him, knitting him something. There's some ways that woman can give back to a man that balances the action, so to speak, that makes it, there's a compensation for the effort you put out. That's a healthy way of doing things, because that was the thing why the damsel in distress was so tiring, is there was nothing ever came back. It was always like giving. So it was like, give up. And that isn't fun. So having a reciprocal way of serving and supporting each other is a much healthier way of doing things, of course.
I do food a lot.
Mm-hmm.
My neighbor had this big leak. It wasn't even my leak. It was from the place upstairs, but it leaked into my house, and the association paid for the plumber, but not for the big hole in the wall he made.
Mm-hmm.
But my neighbor's dad said, "Oh, I'll come do it." And then he found a couple other things that he did for me, and he's not going to take any money. But I knew that he and his wife goes to Farmer Boys. It's a restaurant they love. So I went and got a $50 gift certificate, and they were happy to take it. But he wasn't going to take money from me. But I know this is a place they go and they like it. So why not give them a gift card? I mean, that was really fun to do. So if that's if a man comes and does stuff for you and you reward him somehow in something that you know he would like, then it doesn't feel like just draining, like you're just a one-way hose going out.
Right. Yeah, because that sucks, to be blunt.
It's so fascinating because I love watching your face when you talk about these things that you've experienced, that you just look drained. I mean, your hotness, because normally you're this perky energy and you just go, whoa, like somebody let the air out of you. And I want women to pay attention that this is what it feels like. We are just constantly do for me, save me. I'm so helpless. I can't do anything myself. Really? You seem to probably get yourself to the hairdresser and out to lunch with your friends, and you can't manage to whatever. So that's the thing. I think, though, there is a way that women think that that's the only way they know how to get attention from a man is to be needy and because they hear me say they love being asked for their opinion. Ask them their opinion about something. Ask them to help you about something. And then at least say thank you. And don't keep asking for the same thing over and over again. I mean, unless you say, oh, you're the person that comes and does my whatever, then you probably are paying them. But don't just keep assuming. Don't just keep expecting. Offer to do something back. Say, oh, boy, I really am frustrated with, I really want to learn because you teach me how to do part of this so that I can do some of the maintenance in between or something, because just the taking, it's exhausting for men, and you will not complain. You might leave, but you won't. We complain. We're happy to complain when we're feeling taken advantage of. You won't. You'll just keep giving until you're drained and you're like, I can't keep coming back because I'm getting nothing filling my tank up.
That was definitely my experience. Yeah. You said something that I want to speak to as well, is about women who are wired to think the only way they're going to get what they want is to be saved by the man. Yeah. And so the challenge for that they can show up is that they haven't learned any other ways of doing things or any ways of being, because the men that were around when they were younger or whatever it was basically handicapped them by doing things for them so they could do things for themselves. Yeah. So if you're a woman in that boat and you want to change the paradigm, you've got to change inside yourself how you respond to what's out there and how you actually function in the world. Because you may discover that if you really applied yourself to learn certain skills, which may be cooking, it may be car repair, it may be fixing clothes, I mean, whoever, having certain skills in your toolbox, so to speak, or in your back pocket can, one, lift you up from the place of being totally helpless, but two, make it easier for you to be around a man or receive help from a man that you can give something back to a value. Like you were saying, even the gift card isn't like a simple thing, but it works because it's not just cash. It has a direct impact that's specific for a certain thing because it proves you know them enough because you heard them talk about it. So they value it because it has a sense of connection, that there was more than just, oh, here's the money, go spend it somewhere. Yeah, no. So it's those sort of things that you can bring to the bear as a woman that can lift you out of the helpless, damsel in distress perspective, so you don't have to worry about being saved by a knight in shining armor all the time.
Yeah, because the other thing I learned, mostly hearsay, a little bit personal experience, is some of those consistent rescuey people, some of them are really nice guys. Some of them, though, they don't have great intentions behind their giving, because there are big strings attached. Yep. So sitting back, being a woman who thinks you want to get saved all the time, you're going to absolutely come up against the guy who's going to want way more back than you ever got from him. And that's not a good space to be in either as a woman.
No, that is...
That's got a big sigh.
I was going to say, what's with that? This is the dance of connection, though. The dance of relationship is basically knowing where you stand and where the other person stands and what the other person brings to the table and what you bring to the table. And so, we talked about this way back about thinking about if you want something in a relationship, what do you bring instead of waiting for them to bring it to you? So there's an opportunity here to transform where you are, like I said earlier, about how to be available to meet somebody else and how to date somebody who doesn't have to keep saving you or be saved by you. How you bring your own skill set to the table, but also find some kind of matching skill set that fits together. That's the ideal. How
do you level the playing field?
Yeah.
Because it's not the same thing. You don't have to bring exactly the same thing. You just have to bring equal. Whatever that is equal. An
Right.
equal gratitude, an equal way of serving them back, an equal way of finding out what was the value of what you did for me that I'm so grateful for, and how do I say thank you back? How do I now contribute something that you're not good at that I could now do for you? I have this really long time guy friend, and when he moved to Arizona, one day he called me and said, I need to know how to sew on a button. So I taught him how to sew on a button over the phone.
There you go.
And then I taught him how to iron a shirt over the phone. It was such a fun thing. I felt so needed, and so because he's such a capable person, but he'd never done either of those things before. And he had done so many. I mean, we've been friends so long, and he'd done so many great things for me. And I was like, I am so excited. I get to help you do this. I am an expert at this. I know how to do these really well. And I think I could teach you. It was we can't even tell you how fun those conversations were. So how fun that it was completely different than things he'd ever done for me. And yet we both felt equally rewarded when he gave and when I gave.
Yeah. And the thing about it is that it may to you be something so simple because you know how to do it. It's no big deal. But it's so alien from somebody else. It's like they're looking at going, I don't know how to climb that mountain. It's too big for me. And you can say, I can help you with that. So that's again about the thing. It's not about being the exact same thing, about having equal, like you said, having those skills that are equal and comparable, but different, so that you can bring to the table what you have and they bring to what they have. And you find this wonderful mingling of skill sets in a sense, and then one you can dance together in a way that really works. And that moves it out of the saving to equal right, equal space, equal opportunity. So much healthier.
Yeah. So save. I've really thought about it, what felt like save to me. And what felt like save to me, it felt like for me, the only positive was it was something temporary. That the negative felt like it was ongoing. Because I don't like feeling like I have to save somebody all the time either. I mean, I really get that it happens differently more often for men. And it really is very draining. But we just complain about it more. You guys don't. You're much more gracious about it. So to think, if you're welcome, you guys are so much more gracious about lots of things than we are. To think about if you recognize yourself in this and go, wow, I never thought about it that way. Have I just expected men to save me? What did I expect them to save me about? How has that made me feel like a person? I think this could be such an interesting internal conversation that not everybody's ever had. And then a man, as you're a reformed person of this, are you the kind that rushes in and saves people all the time? What kind of things have drained you? How could both sides put up some sort of boundaries where you like, I'm going to figure this out myself, and I'm going to figure out how to allow them or encourage them to do it themselves? Because one of the sad things I see now when they tease about helicopter parents is there's lots of kids that aren't going to learn how to do much of anything to move themselves forward in life in general.
Yeah.
There's going to be lots of things they're not going to know how to do. And I think they're going to feel like they need to be saved. And so for all the adults right now that feel this way already, get yourself going in a different direction. And then maybe you can help the kids that are going to need it, because it's kind of horrifying for me when I see how little about life their parents are teaching them. Because it's not like the kids think, I want to learn this. It's really up to my husband told my stepdaughter at one point, he said, why do I have to do this? And Christine doesn't. And he said, because her mother raised her and I think she did a good job. And, you're whatever, I think she was 17 or 18. And he says, I need to raise you to be a good 30-year-old. So you need to go do whatever the thing it was. And I'm not sure. I think there's certainly a segment of the population that's not happening actively right now. And they're going to need a lot of saving. And that's kind of sad.
I think part of that is partly the screen generation. Like people, kids are looking at screens all the time, and having parents that encourage and maybe invite them to step away from the screens to do something practical, physical in the world, so to speak, will pay dividends down the road.
Yeah.
And the challenge, I'm not sure, I don't have any specific statistics on this, but the number of kids who are face into the screen the whole time and not able to look at the world, their ability to function later on male or female, independent, will all need saving on some sort of level. So as if you're a parent with kids, to put some time into teaching them practical skills that may help them out in the future, whether it's disaster preparedness or whether it's a simple just household skills, can be very helpful. They can take with them. And yeah, they'll go back to the screens later on, but those stuff will be built in, so they'll be much more capable of contributing to a relationship and being of value to somebody else, rather than just simply being a passenger, which is not what you want people to be.
No, not at all. The passenger. That's a really good way to look at it. No, I want to be the driver of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to have somebody else come along with me, but I really want to be the driver of my life. And how can I make those kind of decisions if I haven't learned along the way?
Yeah.
And part of learning along the way is not having people save you all the time.
Yeah. I mean, I like to be the driver, but also like to have a co-pilot, not just a passenger.
Yeah. Oh,
that's the difference, you know? And so the co-pilot is active and participating, brings their own skills. Passenger is passive. So yeah, I'm using that. I'm just stretching that analogy further and further along.
I like it. Oh, I like that. A co-pilot, a partner in it, not a passenger. No. Yeah. That's the thing. I think people are right. Adults are raising perpetual passengers. And that's going to be really, I like that I got to learn literally and figuratively how to drive my life.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't wait. I was so excited to learn to drive. And I think it's driven me literally to just keep learning more things about my life and not to be overly independent, because there's that other extreme that I don't need anybody ever, where I really do know I do. I just don't need saving. I really don't need saving. Yeah.
That's the shift.
Oh boy, I think this has been such an important subject, and I'm hoping that people will go, oh, I never thought about it that way, or wow, I thought about it that way, but I didn't know what else to do about it. I didn't know how to approach it differently. I didn't know how to recognize I'm trying to save other people, because that's what happens too. People sacrifice themselves because they're so busy saving other people. And it's interesting when I talk, I'm going to write that down for a subject, because when I talk to them, they don't really understand what they're getting from it by saving this other person, and how it's generally not very healthy for either one of them. So Indeed. How to stop doing that in a relationship, I think that might be very helpful.
Definitely a topic we're talking about. That'd be good to have on our list.
Yeah, definitely. Because it is a dance. It is a balance. It's something to stay very conscious of, because that is definitely one of those slippery slopes where you can just do a little and then a little more and a little more and a little more. And to stay aware, when my husband went, no, this is a boundary. I want you to be a good 30-year-old, which she's now 34. She's pretty cool 34-year-old. So he did a good job.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Very impressive. Yeah. She's a very cool kid. She's a teacher and loves it. Loves teaching. So there you go. So if any of this resonated with you, it certainly did with Barry and I. We got a chance to really go really deep into this. And if you want to have more of a conversation with it, either of us would be very happy to do that. So the way to reach me is to go to my website, which is www.theperfectcatch.com. And you can scroll down to the middle of the page and look for the What's Holding You Back from Love questionnaire and click on that. There's 10 brief questions about where you are and where you'd like to be. And then it'll give you access to my online calendar, and you can schedule an appointment at your convenience. You can also join my mailing list, which will give you a chance to get a repeat of our podcast, as well as find out what's going on in my life. And if you scroll to the very bottom of the homepage, there's all my social media icons of Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram and Pinterest and YouTube, where you can also watch all of our great videos. And then you can also send me a personal email at Christine@theperfectcatch.com. And please tell people how they would reach you, Mr. Selby.
Absolutely. Similar to Christine, I have a few things I can offer as well, including my website, which is my name, which is barryselby.com. And on the home screen of my website, there is an invitation at the top, near the top of the screen, which is Let's Chat, which is basically an invitation to have a conversation with me, similar to Christine. I have links to my calendar and a little form to fill out, which gives you some questions to answer, that gives me some clarity of what you're looking for. And then you can get my calendar that works for you, and we can have a conversation. At the bottom of the home screen is my email list. You can just opt in there if you want to just go straight into that, where I also send out replays of this show and other things I'm offering and things I'm working on as well. In the middle of the screen is the new thing I launched, which, well, it's been out for a while now, my quiz, which is the Relationship Readiness Assessment Quiz. You go to barryselby.com/quiz if you want to go straight there, or you can go to the link, the button on the screen for hitting the quiz. It's a place to navigate and understand where you are in the relationship journey. Ideally, if you're single, you do this quiz, and if you're in a relationship, it may not fit. But if you're single, do the quiz and answer the questions, because you'll get some perspective and you'll get a summary that basically gives you sort of like a broad strokes vision of where you are in your life and what you're maybe looking for. And that will also give you an invitation to work with me as well. One other thing I want to throw in there as well is that I mentioned on my website, I have also my book, my other programs, and everything else. I just added to my book page a review of my book, an audio review that was done by AI, and I actually put it on there. It was created by AI. It's a male voice and a female voice talking about my book, and it is so on point. There's a couple of glitches in it because AI does things like that, but I was so amazed when it happened. I said, I've got to put this on my website and let people listen to it. So if you're interested, go to barryselby.com/book, or go to the book link on my own page, and right below the top of it there is a little audio playback thing. Press the button and listen to it. It's just a 12-minute, I think about 12 13-minute conversation, and it cracked me up. So like, they know what they're talking about, but they're artificial voices, not real people, and it just sounds so good. I'm like, this is my best promotion ever.
E.T.
So anyway,
reviewed your book.
Kinda. Well, AI did. Anyway, getting back on topic. So also you can find me on social media. My name is on all my social media platforms except for 2 of them. So on YouTube, so it's Barry Selby on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter/X, and Pinterest. If you want to get to me on Instagram or on Threads, it's The Real Barry Selby. And you can also drop me an email at barry@barryselby.com. So lots of ways to reach me and lots of ways to reach Christine.
Yep. And then we're always back here every Thursday live and in color at 1 o'clock Pacific and 4 o'clock Eastern, and all the times in between. And then you can also watch us on replay on Roku and Apple TV. And then you can take us with you and listen, right, Barry?
Absolutely, because these shows are now put up on the podcast platform. So if you listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Amazon Podcasts, you can take us with you and listen to all our shows and binge listen wherever you are. If you got a weekend off, you can go through 20, 30 of our shows, no problem. Listen to us. And basically, you get to listen to any topics that speak to you, because our topics are often poignant, but it's definitely pointed. So take us with you, listen to us, enjoy us, and then let us know what you think.
And whether you're watching or listening, please like and share it with people that you think might be interested in hearing about some of our subjects, and give us 5 stars. We would be so excited. And then also write up to us if you learned something was important, or it made an impact, or if you have something you'd like us to talk about, another subject that we haven't covered, or you'd like us to cover it a little different. We'd be happy to hear from you.
Absolutely. Cool.
So we'll see you next week.
We'll see you then. Take care of yourselves.
Bye for now.
Bye.